What is going on, like awesome superhero aficionados? This is the Heroes and Mutants podcast, your number one source of superhero talk. I'm Nick with my co-hosts Erik and Ruben. Got a very, very exciting day. I'm super pumped and something I've been waiting for a long time. You guys have been following this show, and I've just talked so much about my excitement and my eagerness to see this movie. We'll get into that very, very shortly, obviously. But first and foremost, because I actually forgot it. Was a good thing you guys I brought it up before we started recording, but because we were just gonna go straight to that review, but Ant-Man and Wasp: Quantumania, that trailer dropped recently, and more so because I remember we talked about some of the early trailers and some of the early footage that was shown at Comic Con and then at D23 and some of the snippets and some of the stuff. So it didn't really come to mind, but now that we got our full trailer, especially it's a little bit weird given that we have the full trailer barely coming out now. I think that movie comes out in like 3 months. We expect like the trailer to drop like 6 months ahead of time, maybe like five at least. But now that we have a little bit of a clear picture of that movie and you guys have seen some of it, what do you guys make of it? Are you guys excited? And the long awaited arrival of Kang, what do you guys make about it?
I thought it was pretty dope. The trailer itself. I think it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
I think seeing Kang in all his glory and well actually I think seeing that costume specifically and
yeah.
how much it looks like the costume from the comic books is really cool to see. Um so I mean I'm way more excited for Kang in this movie than I am for like Ant-Man or any of the other people. But I think it's gonna be really good. It's really cool to see how like in the trailer itself how like scared they were to go into Quantumania, right? And to go
Yeah.
into that city and I'm excited for where it'll go. It's still very open ended. I don't know what the story. It looks like it's gonna be some type of heist story again, which kind of
Exactly.
makes sense for Ant
Yeah.
Man, right? But it's definitely going to go that route. But they're doing something for Kang, so I think it's cool to see how it's going to push push Ant-Man's story forward and just the MCU story forward. Right? We haven't really seen a lot of movement as far as the like overall universal plot of what's been going on in the MCU. Just kind of one-off stories here and there. So seeing it kind of move forward, it's really exciting to see. And I was so happy with his name, Jonathan Majors.
Jonathan Majors, yeah.
Yeah, I was so excited to see him in Loki, and he did so good in Loki. He's like slowly popping up in all kinds of movies too. Like I saw
Yeah, exactly.
the poster for Creed 3 and
There was like another movie, like a early like Navy. He was like playing like a
like
Navy
an
fighter
airline.
pilot or something. I
Yeah,
was like, what the heck? This guy is in like two or three of these trailers. Like, what the hell is
yeah.
going for the
So
movie? So
he's yeah, Kang's everywhere
yeah,
apparently.
yeah,
And so just I really liked what he did as the one who remains in Loki. So seeing him come back to the role, a slightly different variant, it is I'm just excited for it. So I think it's gonna be good.
yeah. Especially if you've seen him recently, because it seems like they're gonna have to change his name. Like he didn't get the memo. Like told him, hey, you're gonna be playing Kang the Conqueror. But apparently, this dude, if you've seen him recently and all his how he looks, his body physically, this dude looks like he's gonna portray Kang who the conqueror of PRs or something. Like this dude just looks insane. Even like friends like in the trailer for Creed are like, "Yo, man, you think this dude is natty?" I'm like, we won't get into that, but he looks good. It's really cool to see these actors putting in the work and the dedication, and then obviously someone like him is a very talented actor, but also with like the physical side of it. Like I'm just really looking forward to it. I think it's funny too because I try not to speculate so much when I say, oh, I want to go in at least with no understanding or not even any kind of snippet about what's going on. But
Mhm.
with this, like you had said, Erik, it seems like they're going to kind of be building towards like a heist kind of film, like a kind of multiverse kind of thing, kind of wondering what exactly is going to be Kang's story. It seems like Janet might have an understanding or maybe have had an experience with Kang or something because she was like, no, 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 like let's not go in. And seems like that might be the thing, like how he gets involved in the story and if he's going to be calling upon Scott to help him look for Ravonna, which is kind of like my theory about it with everything going on. And it just looks really, and then we're supposed to also be getting the debut of MODOK, who's going to be like a cybernetic kind of being also. So a lot of cool stuff. I really
Yeah.
can't wait, and this just looks like it's going to be a really fun ride, especially because it's going to be pushing us into that next kind of direction in the future for the MCU. We're gonna 4 through 6 is gonna be has been labeled like the multiverse saga. So this is gonna be charting into those new realms and going into like another kind of thing for the MCU. So good stuff to come.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, most definitely. More than anything, I'm excited for King, like Eric said, like as we move forward, in the MCU storylines, they're gonna have to keep introducing new characters, and that's what we all want as fans. So little by little, we're getting introduced to new characters, new villains, whether it's they're good characters or not. We don't know what to expect, but he looks good. He really does look good in his suit. He even has the scars, like
Hmm.
on both sides of his face. So I like it. Really touches on the look from the comics. He is huge, though. He looks all stuff, but that's good though, man. It's so he has so much time in his hands. He probably works out when he's just chilling, not worrying about conquering the world.
True.
But
Our PRs. Our
but
PRs.
I'm more excited as well with the storyline to see what Ant-Man's story is because it's gonna go deeper into his storyline.
Yeah.
So and now it's gonna be a whole family thing. They all go into it together, which I wasn't expecting. I thought it was probably just gonna be Ant-Man going after his daughter. But like we saw in the trailer, it's a whole family a family event. They all get sucked into it and they're all down there. And I thought it was pretty awesome how easy it was for them to just get sucked into the quantum mania. You know how they were struggling to get into it, or you had to build a certain machine, and here comes the daughter and just builds a satellite,
Yeah.
she says. And I was damn, that was so easy. Like wow.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
you could see how scared well the mother was, right? I forget her name, Janet.
Janet.
Yeah.
Janet.
Yeah, Janet, she was definitely worried. The look in her face, it was just like, okay,
Mm.
she knows a lot more than she did really say. Like, so now it's like I want to know more about it. And the world
Mm.
looks cool down there. It's pretty awesome. This whole own
Definitely.
world, like they said.
Yep.
And I think also too, what's pretty cool about what they're doing, and now that we're in like the multiverse saga, is just like the challenge that presents as an actor. Because obviously we know Jonathan Majors is going to be portraying different variations of Kang. Obviously we saw He Who Remains. He's going to be playing Kang. There's a possibility he could be portraying Rama Tut and all the other variants. So I think just that challenge of like how like each version is going to be obviously completely different, but the kind of freedom and the ability to say like, okay, now we're gonna channel like these new characters and you're still going to be like that same one, so are playing these same characters that are all related in that sense. So I think that just is a huge challenge and really kind of opens up like a lot of possibilities with what they can do with any kind of story that they're telling. So that's also exciting from that standpoint too. That's like it's not something we've seen before in film, so
Yeah.
that really just is something I'm really eager to see.
Yep.
Most
But
definitely.
remains to be seen. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania comes out in February, so we're definitely going to be talking about that when that comes about. So, with all that being said, uh, this movie was a culmination of 15 years. I think you had seen The Rock posted about this on IG the other day of how, like, back in 2007, there was that fan cast going, and that's where he first got that connection to the character and was like piqued that interest. Obviously, he was more of like that B-lister at that time, was like in and out of wrestling. He had like started making his move to Hollywood, but it wasn't until Fast Five came out when that put him at the top when he became that A-lister. So obviously after that point, that's really when that door opened up for him. I think ever since like 2010 is also like when he started having negotiations and talks with DC Warner Brothers about bringing up Black Adam film, and he was officially cast in 2014. Still had to wait almost another 10 years before we finally got this movie, but Black Adam, as you can tell, is exactly why I'm wearing this shirt, is here in all its glory. And as The
Oh,
Rock has said, the power of hierarchy in the DC universe is about to change. And we're going to do something a little bit different. We kind of haven't done this before. Normally, we would just go into and be like, oh, what did you guys think overall? But we're going to go into like the positives first, and then we'll get into the negatives, and then just go off from here. We'll just try to make that as
sounds
much
good. Sounds good.
about what this review will be. But I think the strongest for me, and I'll go on to one, and if you guys kind of, I'm sure everyone has their own, but I think we're all going to touch upon this at some point. But I think one of the biggest things and the strongest elements that this movie had going for it was its visual effects and its action. Especially when you take into fact, pretty much 80, probably 75, 80% of this movie was heavy in the CG department. And all the characters look good. And I think the thing that I actually didn't realize at first was that Dr. Fate's suit was entirely CG. Pierce Brosnan wore a mocap suit the entire time, and just when you look at the close-ups of it, how detailed it looked, it just looked freaking awesome. Especially when you get into the other characters, I think everything else looked good. Sabak towards the end was the only character I think didn't look as, you can tell maybe they didn't have enough time to work on the CG, and that really gives a credence to the CG department, but more so that's also very relatable towards today. Because when you think about like all these Marvel films are getting criticized for not, and you think about like everybody in that department, a lot of the visual effects artists are talking about, oh, we don't have enough time to work, and they're like the deadlines are crazy and people are stressed out, and a lot of visual effects artists are talking about like, well, we would rather not work on a Marvel production. So this movie almost had about a year extra to work on its visual effects, because this was originally supposed to be slated for a holiday season last year release date. It was supposed to be released around the same time as No Way Home. It ended up working out because obviously that movie would have stomped in the box office. But so this movie was supposed to be released, and then it got pushed back to summer. But because they had to do reshoots, it ended up getting pushed back to October, because at that time when they were going to do reshoots, there was another film that was shooting at that studio. So it ended up working out. They had like another almost year to work on the visual effects, and I think that really paid dividends. Everything looked good from that end. I think this film looked really great in terms of that, and the characters are fully represented, and all the rendering and just everything with that looked great. What did you guys think as another positive about this movie?
Another positive, I think. So obviously, my number one positive was the action also. But
Mhm.
there was kind of, to add to that, is there
Mhm.
wasn't really a dull moment in the whole movie. Like, it was just action, 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 and I really
Yep.
enjoyed that. Like, I don't have to see all this plot all the time, but they did a good job of kind of putting the Justice Society up against Black Adam, and you're kind of like, you understand that they're heroes. They're not seen as like the negative heroes. They're just like a foil to Black Adam. So I guess one of the positives for me was just how it just moved from one action scene to the next, and that's all I really wanted from this movie. So I think that was really cool. And then I think one of the highlights of the film for me were definitely uh, Doctor Fate, or Pierce Brosnan as Doctor Fate. I think,
Oh, easily,
yeah, he
easily.
he aside from like the suit and the powers and stuff, he did that character justice, and he really like embodied that character for me. And just like the Doctor Fate from the comic books, I think he did a really good job at being that, like, the like truth within the Justice Society, and like bringing everyone together and really exploring, even like in terms of the plot, what actually is happening here, how can I help. And I know there's gonna be a bunch of Marvel fanboys comparing him to Doctor Strange and
There,
saying like it's a ripoff. I mean, at one point I went to go watch it with my buddy, and at one point when he says, I guess spoilers, but when he says, oh yeah, like, you're gonna have to die in order to save it. Like, this is the only way. And I'm like, that sounds like it's straight from Endgame, like, or from Infinity War. I was like, this is gonna get so much crap. But obviously, it turned it around in the end. It was slightly different. But I think there's just gonna be too many comparisons where people are gonna think it was a ripoff, when originally in the comic books, Doctor Fate was first. He came
and
out
he's been
before.
around since like the early mid 40s. He's been around, so he's been around a long time. Like,
Yeah, so
yeah,
he's the original, and they did him, pun intended, they did him justice.
mhm.
Yeah, so I think
Definitely. I think
he was a high
because
point for me.
for me, yeah, for me too, because even now you have so many great performances in comic book films and comic book adaptations. I think Pierce Brosnan definitely joins that elite list, and to me, he's up
Hmm.
there with Robert Downey Jr. He's up there with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Like, he just perfect. Even when we just saw that character, like when he was wearing like his matching suit to like the Doctor Fate colors, like with the helmet, just everything about him when you compared it side by side. Granted, just because something is very comic accurate doesn't mean it's automatically going to be great in terms of a
Yeah.
live action depiction. But when you just see like the kind of passion and dedication that he had, and even so much, when I just think it's very ironic, especially because he was actually supposed to be one of the original choices for Batman back in '89 with Tim Burton, but then he like tossed that idea aside because he couldn't take a character seriously who wears his underwear outside of his costume. He's referring to the trunks, obviously, but I just think like that, and he had talked about like in that whole thing about like it's funny too because he had said it. Pierce Brosnan said in an interview that it was Doctor Strange who was the one, Benedict Cumberbatch's depiction, who helped kind of guide his choice and said, "Hey, this is a no-brainer for me to do. What he did was awesome, and I kind of want to channel somewhat of that same energy and to kind of be a character who's somewhat similar." And like his kids were also big fans of Doctor Fate, so it was pretty cool to see like the culmination of where his career came until now, and now that comic book movies are seen as serious and you have like real big time awesome actors who are taking on these roles, and something that would have been not a staple like 20 years ago now is a thing. Like I think that really just goes to show like the power of what comic book films are now and like how they're seen in the public. Like that's pretty cool to see too.
Yeah, that was really awesome for sure, for sure. I really did like Doctor Fate in that, and the way he just portrayed the role and everything. But yeah, to add on that positive note, to touch on what you guys all said was the action for sure. But what I want to go touch up on more is that he oh damn, literally lost my train of thought. The grittiness, how dirty it was, and how
Oh,
he actually did kill. Like Black Adam really did kill, and like the way he didn't hold back at all. So like I think that's really a positive note because, like I said, I'm all about the action. I love action, and that's what I want. Some movies I do want to see this and that, and I didn't know how far they were gonna go with it. Like I didn't know they were literally gonna let him just kill the way he really killed, and I thought that was pretty badass. That was awesome. Like so, stay true to him saying like, hey, like I'm not a hero. He really is. So I think I will touch on that positive note. That's what I really like the action and how every scene, for sure, every other scene, like there was something going on, and it was something always some sort of action where there was trying to trick the guards, with the kid and the mom and all that. There's some sort of form where I was not kind of disappointed, So I was all in with the action for sure.
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, because like that scene where the Justice Society confronts Black Adam for the first time and every member fight, that was cool too. Every member had their chance to shine and
Mm-hmm.
got to do something. Like I thought that was a really really cool scene, especially because it started with Hawkman and then Doctor Fate and then the other Atom Smasher and Cyclone jumped in, and that all that was really cool. I really felt like they all had their time to shine, and even though in my opinion Atom Smasher and obviously Cyclone were a little bit underdeveloped, but they're also the fish
That's
out
the
of
point.
water.
Yeah.
So they're the beginners and the newbies and the inexperienced ones who are coming in to fight Black Adam. So but I thought the interesting thing too, I think a highlight for me was that Atom Smasher and Cyclone had pretty good chemistry. I don't know if they were going to try to hint at a relationship. You kind of saw a little bit of that going on. Like a lot of people complained that they just were underdeveloped and they didn't need to be there. But I actually, to me, like that, seeing that relationship and seeing those characters be three-dimensional and kind of have a special bond, and you kind of got to see like their chemistry. I thought that was really cool and was just really really surprising and was really neat to see because I didn't expect to see that.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny too because my good friend turned to me as like in one of those scenes where Atom Smasher and Cyclone were talking. He's like, "Hey, he kind of looks like Mark Ruffalo because of like his hair." And the minute he said that, I was like, "Oh my god, I cannot unsee this."
That's great.
Yeah, it was pretty
Yeah.
funny.
I know their chemistry was good, but also I think the chemistry between Atom Smasher and Hawkman was pretty good too. Like
Yeah.
Oh,
just how he keeps
you
messing up, and Hawkman is like, all right, we need
yeah,
to talk. like like I thought that was a really
like
cool relationship. I thought they did Hawkman well too. Like I know even in the comic books, a lot of people like kind of bag on Hawkman and like his power just flight. And the fact that he was able to hold his own at times with Black Adam actually was really dope. And I was like, they actually did this guy. Like I thought they might do him dirty because they were putting him up against Black Adam, but you actually see his leadership. You see how focused he is on being a hero and how much he really wants to help, and you see his strength, man. You see how strong he is, and
Yeah.
I thought that was really
yeah,
cool.
exactly.
They I think they really did well with like the different characters throughout the story. I think, or at least with the
I think
heroes.
I think it made him a little bit more. I think it made him just more relatable, more human. That fact that he's this leader, he's supposed to be somebody who is guiding on the battlefield and saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, don't do this. This is what we need to do." but at the same time, he's also the first one who's willing to throw a punch. Like he's very, very hot-headed,
Yeah.
and I think that really he kind of seemed like elements of like Leonardo and Raphael in that sense. And in the comics, he tends to be kind of hot-headed too, even though he's seen
Yes.
as this leader, and a lot of them look to him in the Justice Society to be that astute leader who is going to make those wise decisions and guide them on the battlefield. But also at the same time, he can get very hot-headed. So Aldous Hodge killed it. That a lot of the chemistry just among them too, like Dr. Fate and Hawkman, you can tell that they had a cordial relationship and they were seen as friends, and just seeing that dynamic between them. I just was hoping they didn't hint at this, but I was hoping we got to see it a little bit. Is that obviously in modern comics, Hawkman is known for being a reincarnated spirit.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that they would have touched on that. Dr. Fate and his relationship, maybe they hinted at it a little bit. Dr. Fate is supposed to be like 100 years old, but they didn't really touch on that much. Also, too, like there's just so many characters to go around. Maybe you just don't have that much time. I just would have liked to see a little bit of a nod or like a hint at it.
I did think they were going to touch on it, especially when Dr. Fate was saying like, "Oh, you had to sacrifice yourself in this battle that we're heading into." Like, and he said, "I'm not afraid of death." I thought they were kind of hinting at it there, like you mentioned, with Hawkman and how Dr. Fate has seen the different iterations of Hawkman throughout history. So, yeah, I feel like maybe it's in like a deleted scene or something else, because obviously you have to make cuts, you have to make edits. So maybe we'll see something like that further on down the line. But yeah, I agree. I wish they would have kind of give them a little more depth in that perspective, in that history.
Wait till they bring that Blu-ray out with the extra bonuses. They might have on there.
Yeah,
when it comes out on HBO Max.
Because what I actually thought they were going to do, since obviously it's going to have a connection to ancient Egypt, because that's where Teth Adam, that's where he was born, and that's at the time where he had like gained his powers. I actually thought it would have been easy just to say that he had known Carter from his past, and maybe that would have been a way for him to kind of remember who he was and kind of what he was fighting for and why he is the way he is, and maybe like a way for Carter to see that common ground with him. I thought that would have just been an easy way to hint at his past and also have a kind of connection between those two characters, and kind of, even though they're on opposing sides, like where Carter can kind of understand where he's coming from and why he's fighting for what he is, and kind of his whole dynamic. So I thought that would have been just an easier way to do it, like to just have those connections where you didn't have to like have this extended backstory or like devote so much time of the plot to that. Like it could have just been easy to do.
Also, like, so I know I like having this like DC versus Marvel conversation, but I like how they put in Hawkman, and like we've just finished watching Falcon, right? Falcon Winter Soldier, the new Captain America, and I think there's a lot to compare there between the two, because they're both in leadership positions, and obviously the flight and like the powers or lack thereof that they possess. I thought it was really interesting to see. I'm like, maybe they're like trying to beat Marvel at something here, and I was like, but they did a good job at it. And again, like I really like Hawkman, and I think they did a good job with it. I just kind of started seeing some similarities, like even in some of the shots between Hawkman and Falcon that we've seen previously.
Oh, interesting. I didn't really make that connection. That's a good point to make. I think one of the biggest things is, well, since we're talking about positives, and let's just go ahead and talk about this now. But Henry Cavill is fully back as Superman. This is stuff that we were all hinting at, hoping that was going to happen. It was pretty much confirmed with the announcement that Man of Steel 2 was happening. That announcement came out maybe a couple days, maybe about a week before Black Adam came out. So, and even then too, this is the only time a post-credit scene pretty much got leaked or got pretty much said in the public before it even happened. So even if you went on like the list in Wikipedia, like Henry Cavill was listed as making a cameo, just because we knew that The Rock was building up toward this, we knew like that had to happen anyway. So it's like, this is the only time I think in a comic book film where we could pretty much guess like what was going to happen in a post-credit scene. But also too, I don't know if you guys caught it, but they actually played that John Williams score from the original Superman with Christopher Reeves in 1978. You heard like dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
You heard like the little snippet when he walked up and he's got the curl. That was the thing. I was like, I want the Superman. I want Henry Cavill to have the curl. He freaking has the curl. I think I was like probably the one giggling the most out there. And it was just like, Man of Steel is back. But
But
Also, too, the suit is more updated. The color scheme looks brighter, which is what I wanted. The logo looks a little bit different. You got the yellow in the logo pops, and even though it was very small, I just really appreciated it. And I think that's where you have to give The Rock a lot of credit. Granted, there's a lot of people going back and forth saying that, oh, Man of Steel was already going to happen. It was already in the works. But the rumor is that this post-credit scene got filmed in September, and that he had to go behind Walter Hamada's back, who was the president at the time. That dude got ousted just this week, so ding dong, the witch is dead. And because Walter Hamada originally rejected that pitch,
yeah,
so he had to go to, I think, to Zaslav, who is he's the CEO, or he's in charge of Discovery. So he had to go to him and make that happen. And they said, okay, yeah, we so just that fact of having that star power and that draw and giving the fans what they want, because everybody was wanting to see. And I just kept what the only other thing would have been maybe a connection to Shazam, but this is what everybody wanted to see. So I think, if anything, The Rock deserves a lot of credit for that, because this is what people wanted to see and what we were hoping and banking on. Did you guys have that same level of excitement when Henry Cavill popped up?
yeah. My friend and I were like all giddy when what's her name came out and
Waller.
said, yeah, when Waller said they needed to bring help from outside of the Earth. And I was like, oh, who are they bringing? And obviously it's Superman. And when he came out, I thought it was really cool. But Rip Snyder Cut, he doesn't have the black and gray costume anymore. So I think it's official, Snyder Cut. All the Snyder fans, that version is kind of dead at this point, right?
Yeah.
Like it has to
Well,
be
it'll be
dead.
interesting to see how it goes, because I've heard like the Flash is supposed to, like, the events after it is supposed to take place from what happened in the Snyder Cut, but we'll see what
Interesting.
happens with that.
Yeah.
It could be. Maybe they could play with some ideas of it, but
Yeah.
it remains to be seen.
Yeah, but there's that, and then also, obviously, like you mentioned Shazam. I told my buddy before the movie, like, I just hope, like, I think it'd be really cool to see either Shazam or Superman show up at some point. Not necessarily during the movie, but in an after credit scene. I think we got enough hints towards Shazam and that being in the future, especially because you see the Wizard Shazam show up, and it's the same actor, the same portrayal. So there's an obvious connection there. So they're probably hinting to something in the future that we'll see go down. Maybe we'll see a 3-way fight of some sort. Shazam, Superman, and Black Adam. I think that would be really cool to see that play out.
Definitely.
But I think overall, just seeing that, it kind of gives me hope for the future of the DCEU, where it's going. I mean, we still have, like, there's still good actors playing these characters. Like, we still have Aquaman, Wonder Woman. Like they're very, like, beloved actors in these roles. And Henry Cavill was one of those. So hopefully, hopefully we get something soon on what the future holds for them. But yeah, I was super excited. I loved seeing it, so it was awesome.
Yeah, I was definitely excited too, for sure, without a doubt.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, last thing, positive I really want to touch on. This is something I was worried about, because in my opinion, Black Adam works best as a villain. Like, at the time I started getting into comics and I started learning about Black Adam, I thought, off the top of my head, because he looks awesome. He's got the pointy ear. Like, this dude doesn't take crap from anybody. Like, like, he was just cool on all counts and all levels. And this was before the New 52 launched, and the New 52 is what turned him into more of a vigilante, more of that, like, protector of conduct. So in my opinion, like I said, I think he works best as just a straightforward villain. And you kind of see, like, that dynamic between him and Shazam, because that fact, like, they were both granted these powers. But because of because of Billy, his heart at the forefront of everything he does, and him being a kid, that kind of leans into him being a hero, and the kind of hero that he becomes, and actually being somebody who can use these powers for good. But because Black Adam, Tet Adam, with his past as a slave and vengeance on his mind, he uses those powers in a more morally ambiguous way, so to say, in more of a black and white kind of area. So. And I think just because, like, of those dynamics, there's a lot you can play on it in terms of story and narrative. Like, that is just something really cool, and it's something that I really want to see. But what I really liked that this film did is I was hoping they wouldn't turn him into, like, just a straight hero, which it seems like that's the way the trailer was going to go. But I'm like, I don't know what's going to happen with this. And luckily at the end of it, it's pretty similar to the comics, where he takes up not being the ruler of conduct, but being the protector. So I like that they went about that way. Like he's not somebody who has these villainous intentions, but he is still egotistical. He's still vain, and he's going to dish out his own brand of justice to anybody who sets foot in Kondak, who tries to do something, who tries to be up to no good essentially, or just pisses him off or does something. So I like that they went that route with this character. I think that's the way to go, and I just can't wait to see what's going to happen with that because you're building up towards a lot, and there's just a lot of things that can happen from this.
Yeah. Speaking of
Moving on from,
I was gonna say, speaking of his like history, I think that was a pretty good uh point. Also, like it was a really positive thing for this movie and his story. For those
yeah,
that didn't know the history of Black Adam or to Adam, um, it might have come to a surprise that he wasn't the little boy, right? But I thought it was funny because I knew the history, and right at the beginning, you can tell that was like the Rock's silhouette with the face. Right, I was like,
yeah,
oh yeah,
yeah.
that's the Rock. He's gonna get the powers. I know what's coming, type of thing. But I also think like the rest of the story played out really well. I think in the comic books it was technically his uncle, not his dad. But
In the New 52, yeah,
in the New 52, yeah.
yeah.
So but in the end I think they did the like origin story justice, and they did it really well. And I did like that about the movie, how they really showed like why he is the way he is, how the powers
Mhm.
weren't meant for him, and what happened in there. So I think that was done really well. Even though I did say before, like I like that there was more action than plot. The plot that there was in that sense, I think his backstory was done really well, and really faithful to the comics.
Yeah, definitely. Now we're gonna go on to some negatives, and even though I really like this movie, obviously there's gonna be negatives. I think the thing that really stands out is just the narrative and the plot wasn't as strong as it definitely could have been. I just felt
Interesting.
like it was a bit all over the place, and just there was just instances where you're just waiting for like. Granted, this movie worked fine for me, but I think just when you get into the nitty gritty of the story and the plot and the way that it went, it was just a little bit messy. And also, there's just tropes and elements of this movie that feel a bit outdated. And I just wonder like how long the script writing process went, because obviously you had instances that were like a lot of things feel very similar to like X-Men with some of the look and some of the feel and the mainly like Hawkman's estate. And then you have like the jet also coming out from the
Yeah,
ground.
bro.
You have like a callback to like Quicksilver scene, also with like how Adam sees the world and slowing down time. Like even though it was a cool
Yeah.
thing when we saw it in a different way because he's like killing people and you see like that, but that also felt something similar to that. But do you guys agree on that in that aspect too?
I think that you mentioned the writing and the plot, and I feel like a lot of the scenes I could have written. Like, how many times
Yeah,
can you hear someone say, "That's not what it means to be a hero. I'm not a hero." Like, like
yeah.
how many times did they say that
That's
throughout the whole? Like, we
and
get it
that's exactly why it feels outdated in that sense. Like it feels like even though this movie was like 15 years in the writing, I'm sorry, this
in
was 15
development.
years in the making. It kind of feels like you can definitely tell that when you think about the history of it and like how certain elements came about and certain like dialogue and writing and elements that they use. It just feels kind of outdated in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I think yeah, because what I was thinking is that the writing felt cheesy at times. Like
Yeah,
as far as the writing goes, like the funnier moments for me were with Mohamed, right, the uncle. And I thought, well, he's also like I really like him as a comedian. He has a pretty good
yeah,
show on
yeah,
Netflix.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think he was really funny, and he was probably like he's supposed to be there to kind of break the seriousness of what's going on at times.
yeah,
But I thought he was good. He was a good inclusion, but I also found that the kid, he was kind of annoying. Like,
yeah, definitely.
like, and I understand that they had him there as like to to kind of show like Black Adam's relationship with his son too, and as kind of the focal point for him to like go and do something good and like save him several times throughout the movie. But I just felt like the movie could have done without him. Like having his mom and the uncle would have been enough, in my opinion, right? Like, but at the same time, it's yeah, it felt kind of cheesy at times, but it was almost like I had said, I just wanted action from this movie. I just wanted a fun time. So I
Yeah,
wasn't
exactly.
too mad at it, but near the end, especially like coming up like after the climax of the film, like after the big fight, Like they're still going on with, but that's not what it means to be a hero, and I'm not a hero type of thing, or like we don't need a hero, we need a protector, and like all that stuff. Like yeah, like you said, it felt outdated, it felt cheesy, but it's also The Rock. He's not necessarily known as the best actor. He's a star. He's and he this role was definitely like made for him. He didn't have to show like acting prowess in the role. But yeah, the writing could have been better, definitely.
Definitely. Well, what do you think, Ruben? Do you agree,
Yeah,
or like what's something about this movie that you would definitely label as a negative?
no, I agree with you guys in that aspect where, like I said, I'm all about the action, but sometimes I do want to know more legit plot line. But more for the most part, it wasn't even any of that that really kind of bothered me. I think more towards the end, what kind of got me was that scene, dude. Like that's probably gonna be the one main thing that kind of just said, you know what, that's the most. I'm not gonna forget about this. On the way up, running up the freaking castle, the building or whatever, towards the end, right when Doctor Fate is over there fighting, Hawkman, right, runs all the way up the stairs. Okay, cool, understandable. He probably had his wings, whatever, messed up. Okay, for sure. Oh man, and then after Doctor Fate is there, this and that, and they're going through that fight before freaking Black Adam shows up. All of a sudden, he has his wings back. I was like, bro, like no, like that's not unforgettable. Like I noticed that. Like it was like, how come you did not fly your ass up there from the beginning? If, you had those wings. Like I said, I thought he lost them or something. Like okay, they're damaged. Nah, then later on in that fight, like I said, after Doctor Fate was better, I'm like, bro, where these wings come from, man? Like I'm not gonna forget that. Like
Yeah,
that bothered me, and
that
it
was
still
definitely
bothers me.
yeah, that was definitely a plot hole that I noticed too.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I was like, yo, no, like, so I think more than anything, that's what bothers me more. Like, that's my negative. Where like, you gotta be smarter than that. Like, who missed that? Like, fired, or I don't
Fired.
know. But like, but that's what bothered me the most, to be honest, in my own opinion. For the most part, yeah. That's what I'm still thinking about when I think of something negative right now. I think that's what's bothering me the most. Like, and it's cool because the whole movie was legit. Like, I
yeah.
like it. I love it. But oh man, yeah, that's still gonna bother me for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I
I
was. Were you gonna talk on it? I was gonna talk about something else.
well, I was just mentioned, but Doctor Fate, was that something? Were you gonna mention something about him,
No,
or?
I was gonna go a different direction. You go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I definitely had a few gripes with Doctor. As much as I love seeing Doctor Fate and Pierce Brosnan really hit it out of the park, I already knew this from the beginning because I'm like, they're gonna have to nerf Doctor Fate in some capacity just because that dude had, and you even hear Hawkman say the same thing, like he's essentially a god with the helmet on, and they definitely had to do that because this dude in the comics, he went toe to toe with Spectre, who is a cosmic level being, and he sacrificed himself just because he didn't want to destroy the universe. So he's that kind of power, and he could have easily taken Sabak himself. And granted, I mean, obviously this is Black Adam's film, where they're gonna have to go that route, and this is just nitpicking in terms of plot and what they had to do, but. Dr. Fate really didn't have to sacrifice himself. He talks about like saving Hawkman, and granted, it's a very noble thing. Obviously, he has this great rapport and this great relationship with Hawkman, but it's like that dude almost got killed if it was, and only got saved because of Black Adam too. So it's like, did Dr. Fate really have to sacrifice himself? Was that something too? And not only that, but we didn't actually see him like conjuring up spells and doing too much. Yeah, you saw the duplicates. You saw him create like the Mirage, but the only time like he did his kind of
Yeah.
spell casting was when he broke Black Adam out of his confinement. I was like, are we gonna see more of that? Like I wanted to see more of that. And granted, that's just me nitpicking because Doctor Fate is one of my top 5 comic book heroes of all time. So that everything they did with him, Pierce Brosnan's portrayal, they knocked it out of the park. I just would have wished to have seen him doing a little bit more in terms of his powers, his abilities, and I knew they were gonna have to nerf him in some sense. But overall, it was a pretty good, just me nitpicking in that sense of like, you know what, I wish I could have seen this a little bit more. But well, what about you, Eric? What else did you find as a negative?
I think this might be me nitpicking as well, but seeing Adam not as the Black Adam, not with the superpowers, I don't know if it's because it's The Rock, but it looked really wonky and not believable, where it was like his face and like the body of a normal person. and
Oh
it's all
yeah,
like
Yeah,
yeah.
and
skinny,
that looked weird. I was
right?
like, wait, what?
It
Like,
did look
But
weird.
it so I was thinking back to like Captain America, the first Avenger, right? Where you see
yeah, yeah,
Chris
yeah.
Evans, and they did such a good job there. But also at the time, how many of us really knew who Chris Evans was, right? Like,
I did.
well, I didn't.
I, you
So,
didn't see Fantastic Four?
oh, I guess, but I hadn't really like he wasn't this big
Yeah,
star, right? Like I'm like, oh,
exactly,
okay, Captain
exactly.
America, let's watch it.
It was still like what, a B lister, B
Yeah,
plus listers, B minus lister. Sorry,
yeah.
B plus.
But at the time, I was like, okay, like this is the guy, and you can kind of tell like the CGI was there, right? But I had a lot of friends at the time that watched the first Avenger that had no idea who he was, and they just went through it, and they're
Yeah, yeah,
oh
yeah.
wow, it's actually like it's pretty cool the transformation they did with him. And whereas this one, I'm also saying I think it's because I know The Rock, I know the dude's big, and it was
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
this looks and feels weird. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel.
Well,
I don't know if it was a CGI thing or just like the predisposition that I have to what The Rock is supposed to look like.
the thing I thought was weird was I thought because in the comics when he says the word Shazam and he reverts back to his mortal form, he becomes like a withered old man. So I thought
He
that's what
ages,
was going to
yeah.
happen here, and I thought they were going to do that same thing because it only made sense when you think about it. Like he's 5,000 years old, so granted maybe he wouldn't just wither up and die, but you know he'd be just this old man, this decrepit old man. But
Hmm.
the fact he just reverted to his normal self, I was like, wait, what? Like wouldn't he? Shouldn't he revert to his just like an old man or something? That's just more what I thought they were going to go about and what made sense to me. I didn't think he was just going to be like, you know, The Rock, but his like a pre Steve Rogers super soldier serum
Yeah,
or something like that. I thought.
yeah. I thought that
Um,
was that. It just looked off. It looked way off for
very
me.
yeah,
Sure.
and it's hard for me to criticize this movie, even though I think it worked best because I'm thinking about the history, how long this movie took to make, and probably as a normal movie, if it didn't have all that going for it, I would probably rate it a little bit lower, even though it was because it was by the numbers and it was outdated, but it had a lot going for it, and I just felt it was a very entertaining movie, and I don't mind seeing it a couple of times. And because of that fact, I'm probably going to give this like a 7.5. Normally, I probably rate it like a 6.5 or maybe a 7 at its most, but it just worked for me, and I was really excited for it. And this movie hit on all cylinders for me. What about you guys? What do you guys rate it?
There you go. I think 6.5 is good for me. It's not the best story, but
Definitely
I'd watch it again and again. Like I kind of said the same thing about Shazam. It wasn't like the greatest movie, but I really liked the action in it. I thought it was pretty cool, and I'd watch it again. So
yeah,
it's one of those movies for me. It's a movie I'm definitely gonna watch again. I thought but just because it's so much action back to back, so I really find it entertaining from that level. I think one person that I really liked how they put it is Straw Hat Goofy from TikTok, and he said it was aggressively okay, and I thought that was a really good description for the movie. Aggressively okay, because yeah, it's aggressive in like across the board, and they did not hold back of who Black Adam was, and I really like that about it. I like that they did good by him, by that character. It could have definitely been way better, but I think
yeah.
we got a typical Rock movie, and I think I saw this morning that it's his highest grossing movie as a lead role already.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal for The Rock, and I really I really like Dwayne Johnson and the stuff he does. It's just fun. Like that's what it is, and
Yeah.
that's what this
Yeah.
movie is. It's really fun, and I'm definitely gonna watch it again. But yeah,
What do you rate it,
I'll,
Ruben?
I'll give it a solid 7 for sure. And just for the fact, because like I said, I love the action that was in it, just like Eric said. And it's something that, DC hasn't done in a while either. So I understand when The Rock did say, like, this might be that, DC is going to be going in a different course after this Black Adam movie. So I kind of, as from what I've seen, I do believe it, because I'm not disappointed like from other DC films.
hmm
And it's a new character. So a solid 7 does it justice. I don't want to go too low, too high.
yeah,
But I'm excited for what's to come because I know that's just not how it's gonna end. We obviously seen Henry Cavill come back, reprising his role as of Superman.
yeah.
So And like I do believe down the line there's gonna be some colliding, or who knows when Black Adam 2 comes out, or even with the Superman movie, Man of Steel, that
Mhm.
might be his next matchup or something.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
they'll
Or Shazam too.
movie
yeah,
yeah, with Shazam too, you know. So I'm excited for what's to come. So
yeah.
Solid 7 is cool. So I know, or maybe they did that on purpose because they don't want to give up for what's to come. Like they have better plans
Yeah.
for what is coming, and they were like, let's just do this for now. Let's see how it plays,
Yeah.
and we'll go from there. And they're definitely
Yeah.
gonna go from there.
Yeah.
So
And they're
now,
and they're
yeah, I'm
building the
excited.
excitement. I think
Exactly.
historically the DC films that are solo films have done much better than the team ups, right? Like Man of Steel is
Yeah,
better than Batman vs Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman. Like those are like solid films, and we got good
yeah,
introductions. Not gonna talk about Wonder Woman 1984, but
Oh god, the less is said about that movie, the better,
yeah,
honestly.
but
But
and then even like the last Batman movie, I know it may not be the same universe, but I think they're doing good with the solo films right now. I think that
yeah,
it's
definitely.
yeah,
solid storytelling that they've been able to figure out. And I think the Justice League and the Batman vs Superman, I think all that stuff was rushed, and that's why it wasn't on par
yes.
with other team up films we've seen. But for now, I think they're easing their way into it, and yeah, if this is the direction they're going, I'm very hopeful for the future of the DC movies.
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
definitely.
Even though I think the only thing I was kind of disappointed in is that we didn't see that direct connection to Shazam, which I wish we definitely would have, because obviously he's a Shazam villain. I mean, that's how they
Yeah,
both get their powers, so it only made sense. But there was like kind of snippets of it. I don't know if you guys are aware, but Adriana and Amon, they're actually brother and sister in the comics and not mother and son. But there's obviously with Shazam, there's like a Marvel. Before it was Marvel Family. I think now they're called, because of the rights issue, the name changed. I think they're called the Shazam Family.
yeah,
They, with like Freddie Freeman, with like his foster siblings, they all become like the Shazam family. Black Adam has that same thing. I think they're called like the Black Marvel or Black Adam family. She becomes Isis with an avatar of the Egyptian goddess, and then Amon become Osiris, which essentially like he's supposed to be like the equivalent of Captain Marvel Jr. to Black Adam, which is like what Freddy was originally in the comics. So
yeah,
Yeah,
even though they didn't really make that direct connection, which I was hoping for. There's definitely that snippets, and like maybe we're gonna get to see like Black Adam fighting Shazam, and then like the
the
Shazam and
families.
Black Adam family
Yeah,
fighting each other. So that'd be pretty cool to see.
yep,
And just for the future and what's gonna happen, I said I think The Rock, just given everything that happened, that rated the movie higher for me. It's a fun popcorn film on its own. Visual CGI effects are definitely good. Definitely outdated in terms of plot, story, and elements, but overall very fun movie, and I'm probably gonna watch another two more times. Don't judge me on that, but definitely.
yep,
So
for sure.
unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today, and I just wanted to let you guys know that this is actually going to be Eric's last episode as a cast member. He's
yep,
still going to be around as a recurring guest from time to time, but as far as being a permanent cast member, he's going to have to step away. So just wanted to make sure that we give a lot of credit and just a lot of appreciation and gratitude for having such an astute personality, somebody who's very reputable. Obviously, like we were just looking for more people like that, and somebody who
Yep.
just was a passionate fan of comic books and comic book media as a whole. So we really thank you for your time joining us, Eric. And anytime that you want to come back, the door is
yeah.
definitely open for you. And just wish you
Oh, yeah,
continued
brother.
success and health and wealth for you and
Yeah.
your family.
I
And
appreciate
thank you
it.
for everything, man. We appreciate you.
Thank you guys.
And so make sure you guys like, subscribe, and follow us on IG at Heroes and Mutants. It might be a little bit of a don't know exactly what's going to be our posting schedule because we have to figure out our editing. But we're gonna try to be consistent. We got Wakanda Forever coming up, and we're gonna try to be consistent with our uploads and our posts. So just make sure you guys follow us on IG for updates, and we'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Go see Black Adam to see if if the hierarchy of power in the DC universe has changed, and what you guys think. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you guys next time.
See you guys.
Peace out,
Bye.
man.